In this Jordan B. Peterson podcast, the topic of conversation is centered around the importance of play in childhood development. Dr. Peterson states that the literature indicates rough and tumble. Play is important for kids at an early developmental stage, probably from 6 months old up to when they're grown, and that pretend play, which scaffolds on top of that, is also of primary importance in the development of the ability to act in a truly reciprocal and social manner. Rafe, who runs a company called Evolve Move and Play, discusses his background and how he was diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia at an early age. Kelley's troubled relationship with his father led to emotional neglect, acting out in school, and multiple fistfights. However, he eventually found a mentor who introduced him to martial arts and rough and tumble play, which allowed him to regulate his emotions and become more confident. Kelley's story illustrates the potential importance of physical play and martial arts for children, as it can have a transformative effect on emotional regulation and social skills. Kelley describes a specific game that he has taught for the past 10 years in which participants compete in a physically aggressive but safe way that often results in laughter and joy. Peterson notes that laughter indicates genuine safety and peace and reflects a deep physiological response to feeling at ease. He suggests that rapid attunement between two organisms is occurring during the game, which enables a deeper level of learning and understanding. The sense of safety and mutual affordance, or the ability for both individuals to benefit from the interaction, is a hallmark of the spirit of play, which can aid in the development of real connections. Kelley goes on to describe the progression of the game, which goes from hand-to-hand manipulation to manipulating other parts of the body, and is limited in terms of motion to ensure safety. They use the example of a tag game where the target is only the foot, which allows players to learn how to interpret someone entering their space and timing. The ultimate goal is to move towards highly competitive and unconstrained games like mixed martial arts, as well as highly attuned acrobatic games like dance. They also discuss the idea of wrestling with God and how physical play can help build the capacity for that kind of struggle. Kelley brings up the idea that the right relationship to God might also involve dance, and Peterson notes that there are two poles to physical play: sophisticated dance as an extension of embodied play and sophisticated combat as an extension of play, both of which are important. They also touch on the concept of dominance hierarchies, which are present in the animal kingdom and involve non-lethal agonistic combat to determine hierarchy. Kelley explains that this evolved from competition with a zero-sum element to one that is non-zero-sum, where they play in a way that is minimally damaging to everyone involved. They note that competition is not necessarily about determining a competence hierarchy, but rather about building confidence and developing the ability to calibrate and play at the dynamic edge of one's capabilities. They use the example of playing ping pong with a less skilled partner, and how by ratcheting up their own skill level, they can keep their partner on the edge of their performance, and allow them to experience micro-victories and develop their skills. They also mention the importance of self-handicapping in play, such as when a large dog plays with a small dog by flopping on its back, in order to make the game enjoyable and balanced for both players. They emphasize that good play is about finding that edge in mixed partnerships, where there is a skill gap, and working to put the less skilled partner on the zone of proximal development, while still allowing them to experience some victories. This is also why they believe that rough and tumble play can be an important part of education, as it helps people learn how to navigate mixed partnerships and find that dynamic edge in their interactions with others. Rafe gives examples of how he used self-handicapping concept with his own children, where he limits his abilities in games such that it becomes an even match with his children. The goal is to create something that is mutually rewarding for all parties involved. Jordan and Rafe also discuss the concept of parkour, which is a discipline of learning to overcome obstacles in the environment through running, jumping and climbing. This form of play helps individuals to map meaning into the world and develop a sense of heroism by facing fear and physical challenges. By playing with obstacles, individuals develop a sense of parkour vision and become better at navigating their environment. They suggest that opponent processing is a universal principle and is essential for achieving mastery in any activity. Furthermore, the most significant obstacles we face create the most serious play when we turn them into affordances. Kelley explains that practicing parkour is a form of play that helps individuals learn how to transform obstacles into affordances. This is because the environment in parkour is the opponent, and through this practice, individuals can improve their ability to contend with obstacles. The conversation also touches on the importance of an embodied set of physical practices that allow individuals to tune their relevance realization across fundamental relationships and act out the metamyth. They discuss the importance of scaffolding parkour for new learners and suggest starting with simple games like the curb game to introduce individuals to the practice. Kelley explains that everyone has engaged in parkour to some extent, as it simply involves exploring an environment and figuring out how to get from one point to another. He suggests that beginners can start with simple exercises like getting up and down off a chair in a variety of ways to expand their movements and improve their abilities. Kelley emphasizes the importance of staying on the playful edge and creating obstacles or challenges to encourage creativity and keep one's abilities sharp. Dr. Peterson adds that this approach expands not only one's map of possibilities but also creates new neural and physiological growth. The two agree that the meaning in the world is contingent on one's action capabilities within oneself. They discuss how potential is encoded in our DNA, but it requires stress and demand to call that potential into being. Rafe Kelley compares this potential to the oak tree that is implicit in the acorn, with many potential trees inside a particular acorn. They also discuss the idea of communing with the heroic ancestor and how it can lead to the practice of the realization of that implicit potential, which constitutes union with that spirit. Dr. Peterson talks about the two transpersonal archetypes that individuals can play out, with one seeing the world as inherently good and the other seeing the insufficiency of the world and falling in love with its own rationality, which leads to a kind of tyranny. He suggests that the predominance of the mechanistic digital Cartesian worldview is much more aligned with the latter archetype, and that physical practices can help individuals step outside of it and ground themselves in the exploratory heroic archetype. Rafe Kelley talks about how parkour can be transformative, but it can also fail to transform when not put in dialogue with other practices. They also talk about how one can generalize their practices in order to become a better human being. Kelley discusses the concept of the metagame, which involves understanding how one's personal growth fits into larger domains such as relationships, internal integration, integration with the physical environment, and integration with the natural world. These domains all interact with one another, and it is crucial to recognize that in order to become a well-rounded human being, one cannot concentrate on any one domain at the expense of the others. Kelley also discusses the developmental stages of play in children, from somatic instructional layers to parkour to rough and tumble play, and how these can be related to the 5 axes mentioned earlier. Peterson and Kelley both emphasize that the goal of practicing any discipline should not be to solely become good at that specific activity but rather to become a better human being overall. They also recognize the potential downside to becoming too focused on a particular practice and not applying the skills learned to other aspects of life. The goal is to generalize and transfer the skills learned in one area to other areas of life in order to become a more well-rounded individual. Kelley offers retreats through his website, aimed at providing people with a full experience of the 5 fundamental practices he teaches, which are somatic, structural, nature connection, mindfulness, and dialogical. The retreats involve physical, rough and tumble aspects, as well as dialogical aspects to foster a sense of attunement among the group. The retreats also involve nature-based activities such as jumping from cliffs into water, climbing through waterfalls, and moving through trees to get people to connect with the natural world. Kelley uses examples from his own experience where he uses mantra and qigong to let go of his distracting thoughts and focus on the present moment. The retreats also emphasize the importance of freshly made local food to encourage bonding among the group. Kelley shares his experience of facilitating retreats focused on fundamental structural practices, effective movement through the environment, cohering with others, and mindfulness practices with nature. He mentions that they also introduce dialogical practices and learn the language of the birds, tracking, and wild edibles to deepen the connection between human beings and the natural world. Kelley says that over the past 11 years, he has offered these retreats to around 300 people, and he has received reports of transformative experiences. For example, one of the participants commented on how taking on intense physical practices kept him at the appropriate edge, while also having a group of people to cohere with and a deep sense of connection to nature. Dr. Peterson comments on the importance of physical embodiment, especially for people who operate in the abstract realm, and how it can lead to a qualitatively deep experience. He sees an integration of body, mind, and spirit as crucial for spiritual development, and encourages people to check out Kelley's website for more information. Dr. Peterson notes that the combination of mother's inclination towards security and comfort and father's inclination towards encouragement and challenge is important for children's development but can easily be disrupted if women become overprotective of their children. This can lead to fathers being pushed away and reluctant to interact with their children. Kelley shares his own experience of growing up with a creative father, and how this influenced his relationships with other men, particularly his mentor who introduced him to rough and tumble play. Kelley later became a mentor himself and coached children in gymnastics, often finding that children had a deep hunger for rough and tumble play. Kelley emphasizes the impact that rough and tumble play can have on children's development, noting that he has seen its benefits firsthand. Dr. Peterson and Kelley then discuss how play research supports the idea that rough and tumble play is important for children's development. Rafe Kelley mentions Stuart Brown's research on spree killers and how inhibition of play can lead to such destructive behavior. He also refers to the work of Jacques Panksepp and Jordan Peterson's paper on rough and tumble play in the regulation of aggression. Kelley shares his personal experience of being aggressive and how he was able to develop empathy only through deep physical play. Peterson adds to this discussion by referring to a paper on the hypothalamus, which explains how empathy is not just a conceptual process but also a physiological one. He highlights the importance of embodied knowledge in developing empathy, which is gained through rough and tumble play. Peterson also mentions research on male juvenile rats, which shows that suppressing play can lead to hyperaggressive behavior and underdevelopment of the prefrontal cortex. Both Peterson and Kelley criticize the medicalization of play deprivation and emphasize the importance of allowing boys to play in order to promote healthy development. They emphasize the need for cultural spaces for children to engage in this type of play and the consequences that may arise if they don't learn to regulate their force levels, control their emotions, and develop an emergent tolerance for provocation. They note that this type of play can lay the groundwork for civilized interaction and help individuals learn how to regulate their emotional response and stay within the bounds of acceptable behavior when challenged. It can also teach individuals how to bring a fight to an end and not risk provoking each other. Dr. Peterson also notes that Rafe Kelley's experience as a child whisperer is similar to training a dog through physical play, where misbehavior is corrected by flipping the dog on its back and holding it down, teaching it to stop doing what it was doing. Kelley explains how early aggression in puppies shows their desire to explore their surroundings through their mouths, and how denying that play can hinder the development of bite inhibition. This can lead to dangerous behaviors in adult dogs who are unable to control their bite force. Peterson adds that well-trained dogs are judicious with their bite force and can play with humans using their chewed toys or bones. The conversation then turns to teasing as a form of rough and tumble play, which allows people to test each other's tolerance for provocation and assess each other's emotional and social regulation. Teasing can also be used to initiate play and develop closer friendships through mutual provocation. In the redneck culture that Kelley grew up in, he explains that fistfights were a way to provoke each other to the point of trust and develop close friendships. Rafe Kelley explains that through this type of play, individuals are able to map out different potential meanings of touch, and without it, the map becomes limited, leading to a collapse of the picture of touch to sex and violence in the culture. Jordan Peterson adds to this by making the analogy of resolution of a map, stating that the high resolution required in sexual play is a result of the exploration of the physical landscape through rough and tumble play. Unfortunately, due to low-resolution maps, people often mistake healthy, boisterous play for aggression, leading to the suppression of all aggressive behavior, stunting the physical development of young boys and leading to awkwardness in movement and emotional volatility. Peterson emphasizes that this is a complete disaster for boys and girls alike. They also discuss the ridiculous zero-conflict mentality in schools leading to the ban of touch-based games such as tag. Peterson thinks that conflict resolution is important for learning, and young boys can turn conflicts into friendships through fighting. They explain that rough and tumble play can be healing for women, who often have fewer cultural spaces to engage in such activities, and that it can help bridge gender conflicts by allowing women to experience doing something very competitive and physical with men that has no sexual element. Additionally, they cite research showing that the denial of rough and tumble play to juvenile rats can affect their ability to engage in courtship behavior in adulthood. The conversation also touches on the implications of social media and technology on play and identity formation. Peterson notes that while people are often concerned about the content that's being delivered to kids on cell phones, the substitution of the screen for direct physical play or even abstracted pretend play may be the primary issue. He believes that some of the identity confusion he sees among adolescents may be related to the suppression of pretend play during early childhood. Kelley suggests that the suppression of play can have far-reaching consequences, making it difficult to map cultural interactions and dynamics. They both agree that there needs to be more recognition of the importance of play and physical interaction for healthy human development. In this portion of the Jordan B. Peterson podcast, they discuss how modern society has divorced certain pleasures from their intended contexts, such as junk food being flavor divorced from nutrition and pornography being sexuality divorced from relationships. As a result, people are disconnected from their bodies and the true physical world around them. Instead, they indulge in hyper-stimulating products that consume their attention and distract them from reality. This is especially concerning for children who are easily enamored by things like video games and cell phones, which can take the place of real physical play and socialization. Kelley believes that in order to address this dissociation from reality, people must be invited back into their bodies and have a renewed relationship with the world. He advocates for reconnecting with the world in 5 ways: the internal mind-body-spirit connection, the way we move through the world, object manipulation, rough and tumble play, and a connection to something transcendent. By engaging in these embodied practices, people can cultivate wisdom and participate in the world in a more meaningful way. However, Peterson points out that many people may not know how to initiate play or engage in these embodied practices. Kelley acknowledges that this is a challenge, but emphasizes that it is important to try and find ways to connect with the world and prioritize physical play over hyperstimulating products. Kelley introduces the concept of a constraints-led approach where a game is developed which doesn't require prior knowledge, but progressively incorporates more complexity over time. One of the games Kelley introduces is a variation of wrestling where participants stand on a narrow surface and try to grab each other's hand to pull the other person off balance. Kelley explains that this game is safe, easy to learn, and has clear win conditions, making it a good starting point for those who are intimidated by more aggressive play. Kelley also highlights that the game's constraints are intentionally designed to disadvantage larger, stronger players, and level the playing field for those who are inexperienced. Peterson relates to the conversation by sharing his own experiences playing with little kids, such as playing Step on Your Feet, which he believes is a good analogy for the off-balance game. When introducing this type of play to students, Kelley explains that there is a range of reactions, particularly from women who initially do not want to participate in rough and tumble play. Check out the full podcast by clicking the link in the description below. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for listening to this podcast summary episode of the Pod Slice.